Sweet. So
Cool.
let's go ahead and get into it.
Jump into it.
So yeah, for everybody listening, Nick Shikatano. You can call me Nick Schick. It's way easier that way. And we've got Blair Solberger, former team nutritionist for the Miami Dolphins, and we'll get into all of that. Blair, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm a registered dietitian. I got my master's degree from Florida State in exercise physiology and sports nutrition. Worked at Exos for 2 years, worked at the Dolphins for 2 years, and I decided I wanted to start a podcast. Not really good at social media, and I felt like this is a more genuine way to jump into sharing, my opinions, my beliefs in the science behind nutrition, and get to know Nick and his opinions and beliefs in the science behind nutrition. So, just jumping into it.
Yeah,
Imperfect action. This is episode 1.
exactly. It's gonna be bumpy, but we're gonna have some fun for sure. So I do have a question about undergrad. So I'm in undergrad, so I'm in a DPD program, which is the prereq to become a dietitian. And my question is, did you study like human nutrition like I'm doing at the University of Alabama as your undergrad, or does the DPD program kind of give you leeway?
That I'm not too sure on. When I was looking into it, I vaguely remember there being a few undergraduate like sports nutrition programs. I think Auburn had one. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
But most of them I've ever seen are just like diet. Mine was just dietetics.
Okay.
It was just general dietetics. I'm sure, DPD would include like human biochem.
Hmm.
I think that's what my um, major professor at Florida State, Dr. Ormsby, did his undergraduate in, was kinesiology or human biochem or something. But he's not even an RD. He's just a really prominent researcher in sports nutrition and health. So, yeah, I'm not too sure on that.
Yeah.
To be
So
honest with you.
what year was your graduation? Because I know in 2024 it's going to be where anybody sitting to become a registered dietitian, an RD, you're required to have a master's degree. So kind of back then, this is where I have issues with rambling when I get to thinking on my feet. But so how far removed was the style to get credentialed from where we're at now and what we're going to be at in 2024?
God, I feel like we could have a whole episode just on that
Yeah,
question.
that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't even like, so I graduated undergrad in 2012. Um, so there was not even, it wasn't even on the horizon. I mean, maybe they were talking about it and just hasn't released anything yet. But when I got my undergrad, it was, go do your internships and be a dietitian. I opted to do the master's program because the DI is much harder to get into, has a much
Mhm.
lower success rate of getting in. And Florida State has an outstanding MSDI program. So they're, Dr. Spicer like walked me right into my internships. I did my internship with Exos, which is how I got the job with the Dolphins and continued to work with Exos. So um, I opted to do the masters for that reason, just because I knew how good our program was. But yeah, there was no. I think they started talking about it when I was in grad school.
Okay.
Certain people were grandfathered in until I think you said 2024. So
Sweet. So that style of program so you MSRD or MSDI program where you were doing your internship at the same time. So that's very similar to the coordinated program that we've got going now,
okay,
where you can do actually your undergrad and your dietetic internship, or I believe you can do your master's and your internship at the same time. So
okay,
uh,
yeah. Like I had to finish my internship to get my master's degree.
okay,
That was part of the
yeah,
master's programming versus you get your DPD accredited degree and then you apply for internships.
gotcha.
Whereas you're saying like your program has it kind of conjoined.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not the combined program's not something that I'm doing. So I'm kind of more on the traditional go do your DPD undergraduate program and then either go do a master's or your dietetic internship, which
Yeah.
I haven't decided which one I want to do yet. But so that Exos, that internship, so that got you straight into the Dolphins. Was that kind of like your goal ultimately, or is that just something that presented itself and you took it.
Um, yeah, no, I mean, working in the NFL was absolutely. I kind of hit a home run in my first at bat in the majors. I mean, literally, a lot of people I know from my program did like Gatorade Snip internships, and then are still like assistants or working as interns in collegiate level. And I kind of just, um, you know, right place, right time was part of it for sure. Not saying, I mean, I worked 14-hour days under this guy, Bob Calvin. This is at the Gulf Breeze in Pensacola, sorry, the Exos in Gulf Breeze, which is right near Pensacola. Um, I mean, I busted ass. I worked my ass off, 14-hour days, unpaid. I mean, just
Yeah.
ridiculous. But and it's kind of a funny story. He was the most low energy dude. This guy everyone in the sports nutrition world knows who this guy is. No Instagram, no social media. Hates emails, like just a
Oh
very like
man,
old school.
anti-technology.
Yeah, like he's so old school. But it's getting towards the end of the internship, and they had two dietitians, and one of them transferred to another Exos. So I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just get her job. And then I come in the office, and he's like, leaned back in his chair, and he's like, yeah, so I just got off the phone with my buddy Dave. He's the strength coach for the Miami Dolphins, and they need a new dietitian. So it's probably a long shot, but I put your name in the hat, and he wants you to email his resume. And I'm just like, that's the energy you
Yeah,
need?
yeah,
I mean, like,
like
what the hell? Like, I don't understand. Okay, whatever. Yeah, yes, Bob. Give me his email address, and I'll. And I
yeah.
actually spelled Dave's name wrong. His name's Dave Paluka, Puloka, and I put Paluka, Paluka. Almost didn't. He said he almost didn't email me back, but
Oh
I mean,
man.
I interviewed. I interviewed well enough to overlook
Yeah.
that mistake.
I mean, shoot. You got it for sure. So, that's crazy that he's a super low energy dude and an opportunity like that. He's like, "You know
Yeah,
what?
like I was so
Cool.
hype, and
Yeah,
so like.
yeah, like I'm sure you left his office. I mean, running down the hallway. So,
Oh yeah, and then when Dave called, I was as cool as I could be, and I probably had 6 interviews. We had like one official Zoom or Skype or whatever. I think it was Skype interview, and which was daunting because I'm on Skype and it's the strength coach, the assistant strength coach, the sports scientist director, and but they're like grilling me. I mean, it wasn't just like, hey, let's get to know you. They're like, what solution of this? And I mean, just going
yeah,
at me. So I mean, I feel like I did pretty well, and obviously I did pretty
must
well.
have. Like,
And then Dave would like call me, and we'd be talking, like seeming like he's just kind of checking on me, and then it would slowly kind of turn into another interview. Like it seemed casual, but like
yeah.
I mean, when he finally called and was like, "Yeah, so I think we're gonna offer you the job if you're still interested." I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, definitely interested." And I got off the phone. I was running around my house
Yeah.
and jumping, and yeah, I was going crazy.
I can only
But
imagine.
yeah, it
But
was wild.
so it's interesting that even on the interviews they were grilling you. I mean, I kind of wouldn't expect anything different just because, I mean, to be a player in the NFL, you have to have this super high level of ability. So I would assume they would treat all their interviewees, applicants, all their employees the same way. So yeah, that's kind of
Yeah, and I definitely understand the grilling aspect too, just because I mean, you kind of need a strong personality to work with. It's
hmm
like football, basketball, but I mean, they're young kids making millions of dollars. I think the only person older than me the first season was Cam Wake, was a couple years older than me, and the second season Ryan Fitzpatrick was like a year or two older than me. So like most of these guys were 10, 12 years younger than I am,
yeah,
and so they're I mean just all over the place and they're
for
ridiculous. So
sure.
yeah.
Is that weird to see? Just have people that are so much younger than you in this insanely. I mean, being an NFL player, that's a hugely glorified position. And so, was it weird to kind of be working with? I mean, if they were 10 years younger than you, essentially children.
Yeah. I don't know. Like one, it's kind of hard to see them as children because they're all like 6'2" plus,
That's
like
fair.
I mean, we had like Grant who
hmm
was 5'7", wide. He's fast as shit. Oh my god, that guy was fast. We played handball one time, and this I was like, that's cheating. This guy, you can't just be faster than everybody else. Um, but yeah, like he almost everybody's huge. Like I mean, just massive, 250 plus pound, 6'5". I mean, we had a guy that was 7'1", I think. I mean, so it's kind of hard to see people that big and be
Yeah.
like, but like people called me sir all the time. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It feels weird to me, but I
Yeah.
kind of like it. So,
But and one thing you also mentioned on an earlier call was, and there'll be a whole separate episode for this, but was the required testing, where all the players had to come to you for weight testing and hydration testing.
mm-hmm.
How, like I said, we'll get into a whole hydration episode, but how do you test somebody's hydration?
Urine specific gravity.
Okay.
So, it's basically you're taking their piss and you're just like, I mean, we just called it piss testing. Hey, and I would do it like a carny. So that was one thing I learned is you really have to like, we could fine people for not hydration or
Yeah.
weight if they didn't do those testing. Like it's a missed meeting and they could be fined. But even still, like I want to get them in and get it done. I don't want us to be standing around all day asking guys to piss. So like I'd stand outside the locker room or the bathroom and just step right up, pee in a cup, see who can get the lowest score. You know, like just say shit like that, just to get people in. Some guys cared a lot. Other guys, it was like pulling teeth.
Yeah.
But yeah, so USG is you basically we had a little pin that like they would pee in a cup and put it in their jersey number on this board, and you put the pin in, and it tells you the density compared to water. So it's going to be like 1.0 something, and basically if it's we just take the 1 point off, so it's easier to remember.
Yeah.
So basically, if it's 100 or less, you're hydrated. 100 to 200 is borderline, and 200 or more is dehydrated. And so, I mean, what that would read to is the USG would be 1.10 whatever. That would be 100. So basically, if your urine is 20% more dense than water, you're dehydrated, is what that boils down to. But I mean, it was gross. I mean, you're literally just 90-something guys, and you're sticking a pin in a cup and
Yeah. So.
piss. And like some of these guys, like that shit was orange.
Yeah.
They're like, what do you like? Do you drink water? Like, oh, I don't gotta piss, bro. I'm like, you've been here for 4 hours. There's no way you don't have to. Don't lie to me. Just
Yeah.
piss.
Yeah. So you had the dream job of probing super athletes piss. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what got you interested in nutrition? I have that question for people.
Yeah. Honestly, misinformation. So yeah, it
Which
was
is awesome because that's another one of my questions.
yes, yes was everything around like carbohydrate demonization, and so saying carbs are bad, sugars are bad, this, that, and the other, and so that really got me interested in it, and then I wanted to figure out what was going to make the human body function ideally as far as nutrition, and then what really made me actually transfer schools completely to put me on this path to be a dietitian was I actually left my advanced cell biology class. So I was previously a cell bio major. I left one of the hardest classes my school offered for undergrad to go look up more nutrition information, and it kind of clicked. I was like, I should not be doing this. Like,
do this thing.
Yeah, let me go actually study this officially and eventually get paid to do something that I love. So
That's funny. I actually had a similar realization, but it wasn't even my idea. That's how ridiculous
yeah.
it is. Like I was hanging out with a friend and I'd lost a bunch of weight and we were talking and I was telling her how exciting it was and I started getting into nutrition and stuff and she was like, "Yeah, you get really like you light up. Your face gets really happy when you talk about nutrition." I was like, "Oh yeah, I love it." And she's like, "Well, why don't you study it?" And I was like, "That's
Boom. Yeah. Yeah.
you're onto something there." Yeah.
Yep.
So since you mentioned misdirection, one of my questions is, or like misconceptions and misinformation, what do you think is one of the biggest, or in your mind, the biggest misconceptions in nutrition right now?
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, so it kind of goes with all this sort of fad diets. So I think there's going to be this idea with the cert food diet, which we're going to talk about on here. But currently, the sugars are bad, carbs are bad, which it's seeming like it's starting to make its way out.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of waiting for the next thing to come in. I mean, the next fad diet, the next wave of misinformation on social media, and then you have other podcasts. For instance, I'm gonna just right out the gate call out the Ben Greenfield Fitness podcast. His whole thing is he's a good salesman. He creates a problem, and either his guest owns a company that has
Or
the
what
solution,
is his
or
health?
Keon. Keon, yeah.
Keon, yeah.
I actually bought his essential amino acids because of his claims. Oh, you get so much energy, you feel amazing, and all of that. So I bought the essential amino acid tablets where it was just the amino acids, and it made me shit my pants for like 2 months
Hmm.
straight. So,
That's how UCAN is.
yeah.
They promote it as this wonder card that
Yep.
lasts hours and days, and it makes most of my players made them shit their brains out. And they
Yeah.
swear.
Yeah. So
Um,
I have two
yeah,
bottles sitting in my
I
room.
do love EAAs. I'm a huge
Oh,
so like I mean, and
yeah.
I want to do a whole episode on like supplements at some point.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like, and you kind of hit. I think this is something we'll talk about on the supplement episode about. It's about idealization or optimization as far as nutrition and supplementation, not just getting by. Um, but yeah, I'm not BCAAs or bunk. I mean, they're fine. They have some research on like um, reducing fatigue when consumed pre-workout, but they're not good for recovery. Um, Honestly, I could dive into the whole leucine thing too, which is it's a good marker, but uh, there's some controversy there in my opinion
Yeah.
as well. But like you need all the amino acids to build muscle, so just the BCAAs actually show a reduction in muscle mass when consumed as a recovery beverage.
Dang.
Um,
That's interesting. Yeah. We'll dive into that.
yeah, so that's definitely something to. So what is your ideal career? I know you kind of said you're not sure about the
I,
grad program and stuff. Like, what do you
yeah.
see yourself doing in nutrition?
So I don't know, to be honest. Originally, when I first got in, I was like, you know what? I want to be a clinical dietitian and specifically focus on preventing and helping treat diseases through nutrition. And so, kind of, that's my goal there. I'm still young into it, so I could really do anything. I'm kind of thinking about maybe getting an oncology certification so that I can do
Mm-hmm.
medical nutrition therapy specific for cancer. And
Super interesting.
yeah, one thing that I want to focus on outside of my career is helping reduce obesity rates. Obesity
Yeah.
rates, because I mean, for instance, Healthy People 2020, which was the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics goals for 2020, was to get the obesity rate down to 33%, or maybe it was 33% down to 30. Well,
Yeah.
in 2018, the obesity rate for people above 20 years old was 42%. So we are actively going in the wrong direction.
Right. Yeah. I think it's proposed by 2024 to be at 50 or more.
Yeah.
You know.
So
I mean, yeah. So.
kind of outside of my career, at side hustle maybe. I mean, I'm honestly okay if I do things pro bono, just helping people get down away from the obesity line and help them maintain it, because that's the biggest issue.
Yeah. So I think this is actually a pretty good segue into what we're going to talk about
Yeah.
today, which is this episode is going to be largely focused on the anti-diet movement, which I am a proponent of by and large, but I think it has some things to look out for. I think it's a lot more complicated than it seems to be presented on Instagram, and I think part of it is too that we're kind of in this what I call the raise a pussy generation. Everybody's a delicate flower, and you have to watch out for their feelings.
Yeah, Blair is
Um,
going hard right out the gate.
oh yeah, I don't hold back. Yeah, so like I think there's some misconceptions, and we'll dive into this kind of stuff as far as like what's health, what's not health, like how does mental health factor into it, and those kind of things. But you know, when I was diagnosed as morbidly obese in 11th grade. I was 5'7" to 85. I think was my. I was 40. I was 40 point something BMI, so I was actually morbidly obese. And I like to say that I hate that it's not called morbidly obese anymore, because when I went to the doctor and he said, "Hey, you're morbidly obese," I felt so disgusting. Like it was terrifying, because that sounds like I'm dying. I got like I'm a grotesque circus act, you know. And so that resonated in a way that made me do something about it. Whereas if I went to the doctor and he's like, "You're obese class 3," I'd be like,
Yeah, what does that mean?
"Okay,
Yeah,
how many
cool.
classes are there?"
Yeah.
I'm top class.
Yeah, do
Nice.
I get a degree in this at some
Yeah.
point?
So
Like,
I mean, like it's just it doesn't resonate with me right now. So anyway, for those unfamiliar, anti-dieting is kind of taking into getting rid of the diet culture of, basically including mental health, including sleep and all these other aspects, and not just talking people into going on this diet or that diet, and kind of getting rid of this whole concept of, um, that we have to diet for external reasons, having abs. And that's one of the things that I think is the biggest problems in health and nutrition right now, especially with the rise of Instagram and social media, is that abs means healthy, and oftentimes it actually means the exact opposite. You can have abs and be healthy, but a lot of times people over restrict, starve themselves, exercise excessively, and go to extremes in order to maintain low enough body fat percentage to have abs. So anti-diet is, in my mind, a rebranding of intuitive eating to some degree. I think there's mild differences there, but I think those two things are going to be talked about a lot side by side today.
Yeah, which that's interesting that it kind of, and it really does seem adjacent to intuitive eating. From the outside, though, it kind of just seems like a lifestyle change. So,
Right.
which is one of kind of the issues that I have kind of with everything is if you call it one thing, we kind of got to specify. I like things in categories. So if it's anti-dieting, but it's intuitive eating kind of thing, I do feel like that should be specified because for instance, behavioral weight loss. I would consider that a part of anti-dieting because, in my opinion, it's focused on lifestyle changes, and lifestyle change is what I would line up with anti-dieting specifically. So
Yeah,
it kind of
that's a
does require a little bit more categorization.
very good point. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, so I guess diving into intuitive eating is more or less the definition of it, as far as I could find in some of the research I looked up, was um, that intuitive eating is, so they separate hunger into three separate categories, which is environmental cues, emotional cues, and physical cues, physiological cues. So intuitive eating is a focus on specifically paying attention to your physiological cues. And I think that definition is a big part of how anti-diet and intuitive eating is different, is that I don't think anti-diet is necessarily only listen to your physical or physiological hunger cues. It's kind of also encompassing that there are environmental factors and emotional factors. And intuitive eating is part of that, but a lot of intuitive eating says where you should just focus on your physical hunger cues, and I don't think that's possible. Food is never just going to be sustenance. Period. Move on with your life. I mean, some people are that way, and I guess more power to you. But
It's
I'll
boring
never
as
be
hell.
that
I can
way.
tell you that.
I've been studying nutrition for a decade plus. I've worked in pretty high level nutrition, and that it's never ever gonna be that way. I mean, I could tell you stories about the players and the shit they ate because it's comfort. Like I'm never gonna see food as only sustenance. It makes me happy, and I'm fine with that. So
Yeah, and there's also, I mean, cultural ties to food, and that'll be a whole nother topic. But in dietetics, there's cultural competency. So you don't want to, I mean, let's take if somebody's kosher and they don't eat pork, you don't want to say, oh, you should be getting some sort of pork at some point because, I mean, you look like an asshole. So,
yeah, yeah. I
um,
mean, um, yeah. So like I remember reading one of the lines. I think I copied it here where it said, I might not have. So what I tried to do for this episode, just as a preface, is look up kind of traditional macro counting. So that's a big thing to me too. Is I actually kind of disagree with macro counting as a new, like, it's calorie counting under a different name. You're assign. I mean, macros are calories. There's no other way about it. So you're just counting them separately instead of counting them all as calories. And I get it. Make sure you get enough protein, that kind of stuff. But at the very core of it, and we went over this on a previous call, but like if you have a calculator on you, listening at home, whatever, pull out your calculator, because we have this belief that, and I see it posted time and time again, that 3,500 calories is 1 pound. And so a lot of macro counting and calorie assignment is based on this concept. And when you look at the numbers, When you talk about losing a pound, you want to lose a pound of fat. When you do the math, so we know that fat is 9 calories per gram. We know that there are 28 grams per ounce. And we know that there are 16 ounces per pound. So when you do that, 9 times 28 times 16, it's 4,032. It's not 3,500. You're off by over a day. So you need 8 days a week to lose a pound a week at 500 calorie deficit. And I know it might seem small, 3,500 versus a little over 4,000, but it just kind of goes to show that it's all jumping off points. The equations are predictions. Getting in a bod pod, doing a met cart, indirect calorimetry, however you measure your RMR, it's not right. It's close, but it's not right. So, the only way to ever know is you eat a certain amount, and if you maintain your weight, that's your maintenance based on your activity and that kind of stuff. So eat less. That's really what it comes down to. And it's such a complicated system, in my opinion, and it teaches people to live inside of an app. It teaches people that, they need to track everything and weigh everything and blah, blah, blah. And it's based on a lie. It's based on something that's not intrinsically true. So I tried to look up research on that style, counting macros. There's none. I mean, it's very limited. I found almost nothing. And the main thing I wanted to find was like something that would show like a fallout or a period 5 years, whatever, after they were in the study and see how the weight rebounded. And I couldn't find anything. I mean, I found some good research on intuitive eating, but you're listening to people who are telling you like it's all based on the law of thermodynamics, which I'm never going to try to argue against. But I don't know. The fact that there's not a lot of research on it, I mean, go on Google yourself and go on Google Scholar and try to find it. And it's not that it's even just not readily accessible. It doesn't show up. So the fact that it's that difficult to find research on IIFYM, flexible dieting, macro counting, whatever you want to call it, just goes to show that it's all kind of, I mean, yeah, if you eat less than you burn, or if you eat less than you use, or whatever, you're going to lose weight. Cool. How do you get there? What's the approach to get you to a calorie deficit other than just counting your macros and being a slave to MyFitnessPal?
Yeah, and really, the way that I look at it too is macros is a nice way that people use to overcomplicate weight loss. So, and I mean, that's part of how all these fad diets come around too, is because I used to work in a workout supplement shop, and we had people come in all the time asking, "Oh, what do my macros need to be to lose this amount of weight in whatever amount of time?" And they think there's a special number of protein, carbohydrates, fats, and it's like you were saying, it's just calories in, calories out, law of thermodynamics, and people get really mad when you say that.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, yeah, it's, I think we talked about it previously when we were getting to know each other that that question to me is loaded too. And going to someone who's just going to give you macros or calorie numbers is a poor decision in my mind, because I don't know, until I've interviewed you and talked to you and gotten to know where you're at, I can't give you a calorie goal. Because say, someone comes to me that's a 5 foot tall girl that's 300 pounds, just making something up. She's likely eating 3,500, 4,000 calories a day to be that size. And if she comes to me and I just give her macros and say she needs to eat 1,500 calories a day, that's cutting her food in more than half without knowing where she was previously. Her body's not going to respond well to that. Her hunger hormones, her ghrelin, her leptin, all that kind of stuff is going to be off the charts. It's the body is going to think she's basically entered some sort of depression or starvation, and I don't mean starvation mode because that's bullshit. I mean like her body is going to wonder where her food went. So it's not sustainable. It's someone that's eating that many calories needs to dial back to 3,000 and then 2,500 and then 2,000 and and work their way down to a deficit. But just being like, oh, you want to be 150 pounds? Well, then you need to eat 1,500 calories a day for the rest of your life. Like that's not real. People don't think in numbers. I mean, we're not computers or robots, so
yeah, and that's even where as much as we're saying, hey, macros are bullshit, calorie count and things like that, there's of course benefits to it, because if you're counting macros, if you're counting calories, things like that, the term you used, living inside of MyFitnessPal, it's beneficial in you're educated on what you're eating. You figure out how many carbohydrates roughly are in this. You can learn your portion sizes through that. So it's not all bad. It's one of those, don't make it too complicated and don't think that this is the way. Like, I've got to have it set like this and to lose weight, or even don't cut your calories too far.
Right. And that kind of, I think that's a great point, and I think it leads me to, I actually was talking to a friend of mine this morning about how we were starting the podcast and what the topic was, and I kind of came up with this. I think she's a chef, and the family she was cooking for is keto, and she's asking me how I felt about keto. And I think part of the issue with the anti-diet aspect is it says diets are bad. It says, that do this, do that, but it's the whole concept anti-diet, against dieting. And first off, we need to just take back the term diet. Diet is what you eat. Your diet is high, it's low, it shifts, it changes, but diet is what you eat. It's not something you go on. But anyway, for sake of argument, I don't think diets are inherently bad. Like you said, it's about a lifestyle change. And if you want that to be low carb, that's your lifestyle. Some people do have, non-celiac related inflammation to not gluten, but wheat. So like there is, some people have insulin sensitivity and the carbs just don't work well with them. So that's fine. But the point is, it's kind of getting away from those external motivators, those external, like, I want to have abs, there's a societal pressure to be a certain shape and that kind of stuff. But if you can go into a diet, even if it's only temporary, and learn something from it, that's the important thing. Like you're saying, you learn from counting your macros about the density of certain foods, or, that, like we were talking salmon. I mean, 6 ounces of salmon is 240 calories or so. Like, it's not a lean meat. It's healthy, but, going on keto can teach you that you don't respond as well to carbs as you thought. Oh my God, I feel so much better because I'm not inflamed. Is it because you're eating less, a more controlled diet, or is it because, so intermittent fasting, I think, actually helped me. I have really bad hunger cues, and this is something we'll get into in just a second with intuitive eating, but like, from being morbidly obese, my hunger cues were out of whack, and intermittent fasting kind of got me through bored eating. I don't eat because I'm bored anymore. I don't eat because it's time. I eat when I'm hungry. And, it kind of taught me to be able to ignore those false hunger cues and things like that. And it's not something that I even expected going intermittent fasting. I just wanted to try it. I don't believe in having a strong opinion on a diet I've never tried. So, it taught me things. I think everybody intermittent fast. If you're not waking up every 3 hours to drink a protein shake while you're sleeping, then you're intermittent fasting, let's be honest. But yeah, like, I think it taught me things. I wouldn't tell any of my clients to go on intermittent fasting. I just think it can teach you things if you're going in with the right mindset.
Yeah, for sure. But so, I mean, let's get into that intuitive eating. So,
all right. So the line that I was talking about earlier was, a new body of research suggests that helping people recognize and respond to their internal signs of hunger and satiety may offer a healthy alternative to dieting. And that sounds awesome, but when you look at it, research suggests, so it's not even like proven or tested really, helping people recognize and respond to their internal signs. So it's not just listen to your body. And that's my big problem with intuitive eating, is a lot of people are like, oh, listen to your intuition, listen to your body, and may offer healthier alternative to dieting. So there's a lot of might, maybe, and lack of certainty in that statement. And when I actually in a class was having a discussion, somebody brought up intuitive eating, and like I kind of alluded to just a second ago, my intuition is to be obese, and I've kind of gotten away from it. I've moved. It's not quite as strong as it was, but for a long time, years, I had to actively fight my eating intuition and understand, go through trial and error and go through trial by fire to get to a point where my body wasn't just screaming at me to stay obese. And my major professor brought up, well, what if you're broke? Then your intuition has nothing to do with nutrition at all. It's about saving money. So intuition is such an ambiguous word as far as like, it does require training. You have to work with someone and you have to go through trial and really get to a point of understanding. And I think I hear this all the time where people say, listen to your body. Well, how do you know that you and your body are speaking the same language? Like it takes time to really get to a point where you are able to listen to your body and realize that this is hunger and not a craving, that this is, a physiological cue and not an emotional one. So, I mean, I think it's a good thing when done right. I think it's just one of those things that's a slippery slope into a blanket statement that's really not. It's a band-aid, and when you give someone a band-aid, they're not going to fix anything. They're just going to walk away thinking they have the answer.
Yeah, and also to really stay informed. So a benefit is you learn what's what are you actually hungry, what's emotional hunger, boredom eating, environmental, everything like that. But what you were alluding to is, I mean, just think about your body doesn't want to change. Most people who lose a lot of weight, they're like, man, you know what? I was hungry all the time. Or if they're trying to put on weight, you hear everybody say, I just couldn't fit that much food in my mouth all at once. That's the hardest part about it, because your body wants to stay where you're at. I mean, it's the definition of homeostasis, to try to maintain your baseline. So, for instance, your baseline was morbidly obese. Your body wanted to stay there, and exactly what you said. So, I mean, I just want to back up everything you said. You gotta, even though you're listening to your body, you have to understand that your body wants to stick to the status quo. So,
Right. And, there's a lot of biological stuff built in there that's slowly breeding itself out, but that's how evolution works. It's not like, oh, well, we're not in feudal times anymore. We don't need, winter storage, but your body still has some of that written in. Like we are in a slowly evolving species, but your body wants to hang on to weight to make sure you have energy in times of famine. And our bodies, other than heat retention, are incredibly efficient, and if they aren't, they'll get there. That's why muscle confusion exists, but really what it is it's not like P90X where you have to do a different exercise every 14 seconds for the rest of your life. It's I bike all the time. So I'm going to burn less calories than someone the exact same size, weight, body fat percentage, muscle mass, whatever, that's never biked before. I'm burning less calories doing the same workout as him because my body is mechanically efficient at it. So your body is going to get good at storing calories. It's wanting to maintain its energy storage and things like that. Like it has an efficiency to it. That's why we store fat instead of just pissing it out or defecating it, is because your body it's efficient. Why don't I hang on to these calories instead of just getting rid of them?
yeah, and that's another thing. So, your body, of course, wants to store fat, and we'll get into metabolic adaptation a couple episodes down the line. So, when you're in a calorie deficit, your body primes itself to store more fat. But on the opposite end of that, when you have more food availability and greater variety, so this is actually coming straight from the Academy's position paper on treating overweight and obesity, the body doesn't account for that in the other way. So, if you're consistently overeating, your body's not going to go, oh, you know what, maybe I should become less efficient so that I can handle with this. So it's kind of, from a fat loss perspective, it's fighting you in both directions. Like it's trying to make you put on fat when you're losing fat, and it's not going to prevent you from putting on fat when you're not trying to lose fat.
Right. Yeah. And I think kind of getting back to like intuitive eating and the anti-diet stuff. I looked at some research that was kind of interesting, and we'll dive into some more of this kind of stuff with the episode on research, how to interpret research, which I think is a really powerful episode that we have planned. But so some of the stuff it was saying was that like adolescents who have dieting behaviors tend to maintain dieting behavior into adulthood. It sticks with you. Research consistently shows that attempts at dieting are often unsuccessful and do not predict weight loss or maintenance, but instead predict weight gain and overweight status. Dieters may experience large weight fluctuations, emotional distress, depression, and are at risk for the development of eating disorders. This suggests that dieting is not a sustainable strategy for weight loss and does not promote a healthy lifestyle. And so there is research there, but some of it, and part of the intuitive eating stuff too, was one of these research things said like, intuitive eating is associated with several markers that improve physical health. It's inversely related to BMI. almost 75% indicated that they trusted their body, but when they moved up to looking at people who were obese or overweight, that number dropped down to like 61 and 47. So it begs the question, like, is dieting responsible for this depression? I mean, I won't try to argue that dieting might be responsible for the um, disordered eating behaviors. I think that's spot on. But typically, there is some amount of depression or self-loathing that's associated with the desire to lose weight or being obese. And I think that, when you're looking at it, it's like, oh, well, intuitive eating shows that if you are more willing to listen to your body, that you'll be a healthier BMI. But to me, that might say that people who can listen to and are primed to listen to their body and eat intuitively are in better health. Like they tend to be a lower BMI or a healthy BMI. I don't think is it the chicken or the egg in this case. Are they less intuitive because they're obese, or are they obese because they're less intuitive? So how do you split those hairs is kind of an interesting take on that research.
Yeah, and that's a really good point too. Um, so, kind of what you were mentioning about the research aligned with a little bit of what I had found. There was actually, who was the author for the research article that you were talking about, where once they
Kara Denny was first author. It's called Intuitive Eating in Young Adults. Who is doing it and how is it related to disordered eating
Okay,
behaviors?
so I have a different one, which it's less about disordered eating and more about the health indicators, which is kind of where I thought you were going at the beginning of that. But it was talking about how they did have positive health indicators with intuitive eating, and then they accounted for BMI, and it kind of became a wash and sort of just sorted itself out and didn't show too much of a difference, which is part of, in my opinion, what fortifies that homeostasis aspect where your body doesn't want to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Um, yeah, and to me, I feel like we're kind of getting to the health at any size kind of thing
mm-hmm.
too, where it's like you were saying, like there were health parameters and health markers, but when you put BMI into the equation, it kind of washed everything out. And I actually read something a couple days ago that said something along the lines of, if you have anything to say against health at any size, you probably sell a foot in diet culture's door. And I took a lot of issue with that statement. I am the first person to disagree with health at any size. If you want to find yourself beautiful, if you want to have confidence, if you want to be happy at any size, nobody can stop you, and you shouldn't let them. But saying something like there isn't health at every size, it's not. Like obesity is marked by chronic low-grade inflammation. That's one of the characteristics of it. So you are going to be more inflamed because of being obese, no matter how much you exercise or whatever. Like that's just part of having that much fat on your body. Typically, people who are obese have a lot of visceral fat, which means issues with artery clogging and organ function. And it's not always the case, but that is typical. I mean, more often than not, if you pick someone who's obese, they're going to have higher visceral fat, less properly functioning organs, more health complications, more comorbidities. Diabetes is rampant, and it's just one of those things where there isn't health at every size. And it's because I don't believe that doesn't mean I'm in diet culture's pocket. It just means that I don't. What aspect of health? Mental health? Yeah, you can be mentally healthy at any size, but you can't be physically healthy. It's not a cultural belief. There are measurable parameters in your blood, in your enzymes, and things of that nature that tell you how well your body's functioning. And those numbers aren't going to lie to you, because you don't culturally believe it, kind of thing. So I think it's kind of a crock of shit, in my opinion.
Yeah, so that's actually when we get into that topic, I keep saying, "Oh, we're going to get into this later. We're going to get into this later." It's going to be a good many. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, health at any size is actually something that I'm insanely interested in because, I mean, like you, Blair, I don't really believe in it, but because I don't believe in it, I want to prove myself wrong through research. And just
approach.
yeah, and just
It's
see what
life.
it
It's a good
says.
approach.
Yeah, shoot, why don't I believe in this? Okay, well, I don't have anything to back up why I don't believe in this other than it doesn't feel right, but I know how to go through the research. We can figure this out, and shit, if we're doing it, we'll record it, post it so everybody else can hear
Yeah, I
it.
mean, we'll see how much there is because, like, how do you research something like that other than looking at
Yeah,
obesity comorbidities and that kind of stuff?
yeah.
Um,
But one thing that I found, it was one thing, it wasn't even on a research article, so take it with a grain of salt. But its definition for health at any size actually didn't claim that you could be healthy at any BMI, which I don't have it pulled up, so I can't quote it
yeah,
directly, and I can't even say where I got it. So take it with a grain of salt, but I guess that can be like our cliffhanger for that episode.
right,
Is like it might be like false advertisement for this ideology.
right. Yeah,
But
and I don't know. I mean, like you said, we'll try to fit that into another
yeah,
episode and really dive into it. But just off the cuff, like I'm not a fan of that statement. Like it's not true. I mean, like I said, you can be mentally healthy, you can find yourself beautiful, you can have confidence. I mean, anything you want, but don't tell me you're physically healthy. I mean, it's not the norm to be a BMI of 30 or higher and have spot on blood numbers and spot on. And I bring that kind of stuff up, and I'll talk about this on another episode on like maybe we'll do like a myth busting thing, but I don't even think cholesterol's a problem. I don't think LDL's a problem like people think it is. I think that's a response to statin drugs. So don't get me wrong, there are some things that you know aren't necessarily used properly in like blood testing, metabolic panels, and that kind of stuff. And I know that probably intrigues a lot of people to hear me say that and then not go into it. But yeah, like I defend cholesterol. I hate that people call LDL and HDL cholesterol. They're not. It means high or low density lipoprotein. It can't be cholesterol if it's a lipoprotein. Those are different things. Um, but you know, you can't really refute blood triglyceride numbers and blood sugar levels and your enzymes that measure liver and kidney health and things like that. Like those things don't lie the way that I mean, maybe cholesterol is bullshit, but you can't just wipe it and say like, oh, doctors are lying to you and you can be healthy at whatever size you want. Like, you sound like an anti-vaxxer being like, oh, science isn't real and you don't have to listen to that kind of, I mean, like that's what it sounds like to me. So
that's a fantastic comparison. We might get canceled after the first episode, to be honest.
please cancel me still.
Yeah, exactly. But so we'll go
Yeah.
into myths and specifically the cert food diet. I know I mentioned that
Yes.
earlier today. So my take on this is,
Do you want to go through what we wrote, like what the cert food diet is, real quick,
yeah, absolutely,
off the sheet?
absolutely. So that's going to be scrolled up here. All right. So this is actually your research. So I'll go into. You can go into that.
No, I'll let take it away. I mean,
Okay.
just kind of the parameters behind what like how the diet works.
Gotcha. Yeah. So where it gets its name, the cert food diet is it's specifically talking about activating sirtuin proteins, which where they sell you a dream is it says activate your skinny gene.
Mm-hmm.
There's
I remember learning
yeah.
about the skinny jeans and exercise endo.
Yeah, like there's no
Yeah.
such thing as a skinny gene. But I mean, really, what it is it's requiring you to eat 1,000 calories a day and then basically a juice smoothie. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're eating 1,000 calories a day, you will lose fat. You will lose a ton of body fat, and you will
And
plateau.
muscle and
Yeah,
water
yeah,
and
and then you will plateau hard as shit. You're gonna get upset. You're gonna
burn out.
probably yeah, you're gonna
Yeah.
burn out, and you're gonna probably gain 20% more fat than you started with.
Right. And
Um,
if after this we can't talk you out of try if you're interested and we don't talk you out of trying the cert food diet, please don't exercise while you're doing this. Like 1,000 calories is not enough for anybody to exercise and be eating on a daily basis. Like you're gonna lose muscle, you're gonna hurt yourself, your recovery is gonna be ass. Like don't do the diet, but definitely don't exercise if you're still gonna do it.
yeah, and that's coming from the Miami Dolphins guy. Remember that.
Yeah. So
So
just looking at it, so I found a list of what the cert foods are, and I wrote in parentheses next to it, zero evidence. There's no evidence. And just as a preface, I took a full course in my master's program called Exercise Endocrinology. Um, Cert proteins came up once, and it was a specific research that me and a friend did, and it wasn't actually part of the class. But
Can I put a pause on this real quick?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so dietitians are the experts on nutrition. He specifically went through this with his master's degree. So if an expert in nutrition is talking about this and saying it's bullshit, I promise you it's bullshit.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, good, yeah, good aside. Um, so yeah, like Cert one. So there's 7 Cert proteins, and we learned about Cert one, and that was we were specifically looking at certain types of exercise, and I believe it was due to um, occlusion training or blood flow restriction showed an increase, and I think German volume training as well showed an increase in Cert one, which is part of the chain of reaction to what's called mitochondrial biogenesis, or basically creating new mitochondria. And mitochondria are the part of the cell that specifically turn your food into energy. It's
Powerhouse of the
where
cell.
most of the carbon transfer, powerhouse of the cell, everybody knows that, and you know what it means. So yeah, like that's where I could see the whole like, oh, it turns on your skinny jeans. But like I said, I saw some exercise modalities that showed upregulation in Cert1 proteins, but I never saw any food, period. And then, so looking at it, kale, strawberries, onions, soy, parsley, extra virgin olive oil, dark chocolate, green tea, buckwheat, turmeric, walnuts. So it's just a list of things that say like they're healthy foods. It's vegetables, it's green, and it's wheat, and it's turmeric and spices. Like I would never tell somebody not to eat these foods, and not because they're cert boosting, but just because they're good foods to have in your diet. But then I'd see one of them is red wine. There is no good research. I won't say there's no research because there is research, but there's no actually good research that shows any amount of alcohol is healthy for you in a nutritional or biological sense. Alcohol is a poison. It is not good for you. I drink. I love wine. I love red wine to death, but that is a mental thing. It's a social thing. It has nothing to do with nutrition. So to tell me that red wine is going to boost your skinny jeans is wrong. Alcohol in and of itself, and we can have a whole episode on this, shuts down every metabolic pathway except for fat storage because your body is trying to remove a toxin from your system. So basically, your body is only storing fat. That's the direct opposite of a skinny jean, is pure fat storage due to alcohol consumption and blood alcohol level. So it's, just right away, that I think debunks the diet in and of itself that they're throwing red wine on there and saying it's a skinny jean. It's bullshit. I mean, it's the whole diet's just trash. I mean, I'm glad Adele lost weight and everyone's mad at her and shit like that. Like, are we proud of her? Are we mad at her? Like, I think you brought up she's very body positive, but then she decided to lose 100 pounds. Like, how body positive were you if you then decided to lose weight? Because you clearly weren't healthy at every size if you felt you needed to lose 100 pounds and go on this cert food diet.
Which that's the complications of Twitter. Like, it's been repeated to me. Twitter is kind of the new Tumblr. So I mean, I don't know if you were on
No, I never
Tumblr
used
back
that.
when it was big. But basically, a very toxic community. We'll just get into it where everybody's trying to be mad about something, and that's
Everybody's an asshole.
yeah, that's all Twitter is. So
I think this is a good lead into the research kind of stuff we were talking about. One of the things I noticed is green tea, matcha green tea specifically, is mentioned one in the boosting foods, and it's also part of the 3 times a day smoothie you have to drink. But it's funny, like how often green tea gets brought up as a weight loss tool, supplement. I mean, drinking green tea's never. I mean, and this is kind of where the research thing comes in. Yes, there is research showing that green tea helps weight loss, and it's significantly is the term, and that significantly to the average person means by a large margin, to an extreme degree or a high degree, whereas significantly within research means that it falls under a certain category of effect that shows that this thing does work. And I think it's 0.05. So 95% of the time, this thing's going to work the way that the research shows that it does. That's what significantly means. It doesn't mean that it has a significant effect. It means the research is significantly proven. So when I looked at the research on green tea, 2 to 3 grams of green tea extract daily, which would be drinking over a gallon of green tea a day, but 2 to 3 grams of green tea extract daily over 12 weeks saw a zero point 0.8 to 1 kilogram loss in weight. Is that significant? Over 12 weeks, you lost 2 pounds? Would you be like, yeah, I've been taking green tea. I lost 2 pounds these 3 months. Like, that's not significant weight loss. So that's the difference between research saying it works significantly and it having a significant effect. So like matcha green tea, it's bullshit. Like, I mean, drink it if you like it. And it has catechins, it has, polyphenols and things that are good for your body, but it's not doing anything for your weight loss. I mean, if 2 pounds is you're splitting hairs. I'll be 2 pounds heavier tomorrow and 4 pounds lighter the day after that. So
I actually, one thing I keep telling people as far as weight, and actually a reason why you shouldn't use weight to determine your own value, is I had weighed myself in the morning one day and right before I went to bed, and there was an 8 pound difference. Trying to tell me that throughout the entire day I gained 8 pounds of anything
yep.
other than water. So really 2 pounds in 3 months, that's not significant at all. That it depended on how many times they measured weight, what else they did for measuring it. Like that could just be water fluctuation.
Right. I mean, that's an excellent point because I think I weighed a week and a half ago. I was 217. I weighed today. I was 213. I
Yeah.
didn't lose 4 pounds in a week and a half. I mean, I did technically,
Yeah.
but I mean, I didn't burn. So. And actually, I was talking to my roommate the other day where a lot of times, maybe it was you actually, I don't know, somebody. I talk about nutrition with too many people too often, but
You and me both.
where it's like people will say like they'll go out and have like something bad, have a cheat meal, go eat a cookie, 2 cookies, shit, 4 cookies, and they're like, oh man, I just gained like 6 pounds eating all these cookies. It's like you can't gain more weight than the food weighs. Like the cookies aren't 100% calories. They have water. They have other components that are non-caloric. So if you eat half a pound of cookies, you can't gain 4 pounds. It can't happen. Like it's less weight. You can't put on more weight than the weight of the food itself. So like it's just crazy to me that people are like, oh, I ate this and I gained a million billion pounds. And it's like, no, you didn't. Like, I mean, you didn't. That's the truth. Because it's calories per gram. That means calories increase as weight increases of the food. So I don't think that 4 cookies has 4,082 calories that you just put on to.
We should do that. We should like get 2 pounds of cookies, eat it, and then see what we weigh afterwards.
Yeah,
Like,
little pre and post. You
yeah.
don't have to talk me into eating 2 pounds of
Yeah, I
cookies.
know.
As long
So
as they're like white chocolate macadamia nut.
yeah, we're doing it for science, guys. It's
Yeah,
okay.
this is for science. I'm pretty sure Nick would pick Oreos. Just so
Yes,
you
that's
guys know.
exactly what I was thinking.
Oreos are
So,
vegan, by the way.
oh,
Yeah,
fun.
so that very healthy. These vegan Oreos.
Oh, that's
Um,
if this is not the episode that gets us canceled and Health at Every Size doesn't get us canceled, that episode will get us canceled.
Nobody can cancel us. We're doing this on our own. I mean, nobody's paying us. Nobody's going to advertise with us either.
They're going to come
So,
to our houses.
so yeah, and I think you kind of hit something on, just kind of getting back and wrapping up the anti-diet stuff is focusing on your self-worth. And I think that's a great term that you brought up is that I don't have a scale. I don't own a scale. I use one at the gym just to kind of have an idea, but my weight can change based on water. I can lose 4 pounds. Was that fat? How are my clothes fitting? Take pictures, things like that. There's much better ways to measure because, especially with like, I see it a lot with women, they'll gain weight, or untrained men, your weight it moves faster the heavier you are, and then it slows down. And that's part of your, you mentioned earlier that your body wants to stay in homeostasis. It's fine losing this extreme excess, but once you start getting down to, close to your appropriate weight, it gets harder and harder to lose weight, which is why you see these bodybuilders on these ridiculous chicken and broccoli bullshit diets. God, I'd kill myself.
Boring.
I'd rather die.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it isn't your self-worth. Your muscle mass can increase and your fat mass can decrease and your weight stays the same. So you need to have a professional do a body composition. So what if you gain 2 pounds of muscle and lose 2 pounds of fat, that's not no progress. It's just not progress on the scale. And I think it's important that, like, I think anti-diet encompasses tracking yourself the right way. Taking pictures and not putting your self-worth on a scale. I think that was a really good point that you brought up, and just kind of wanted to touch on it.
Yeah, and especially anything that's not the scale is also going to be a great thing. So measuring waist hip to waist ratio or waist to hip ratio, progress pictures, or even just how you feel. So I'm actually in the process of trying to lose some weight and started taking progress pictures and decided, like, I mean, I feel better, and I had no interest in taking pictures. It just completely slipped my mind because I just feel better.
Hmm.
Like, I just objectively feel better, so I know it's working.
Yeah, and I think I encourage people, especially when they're starting out, like not to track their food through an app that tells them the number of calories, but just to like keep a journal and then also write next to that meal how they felt. Oh, I felt great. Oh, I ate this and I felt terrible. And then you can start to build up information. That's ultimately what you want to collect is information. Is okay. So how did I feel when I ate this? If every time you have, and let's just pick something arbitrary, chicken wings, you know, you feel like shit, then don't eat chicken wings. Or maybe eat less chicken wings. When I have 7, I'm fine, but when I have 10, I feel like crap. That gives you information to know what your inflammatory point is and, how you're feeling based on the foods you're eating. And I think that's very powerful information to have.
Yeah. So I agree with that. That kind of segues into our sign off, our words of wisdom.
Yep.
Did you have anything to add to that? I know that was already like a little nugget of wisdom, but here's a chance to get a second one from, again, the Miami Dolphins guy.
Yeah. So my words of wisdom right now is going to be, and I think this kind of feeds into the anti-diet stuff. I actually heard a song yesterday when I was biking. It's the opening line was, "Some people are like clouds, life is much brighter when they go." And I think that's going to apply to your social media, which is you need to cleanse anybody that's not offering you value from your social media. If you follow someone because they're attractive and have abs, you need to unfollow them. If you follow someone because they post booty pictures, you need to unfollow them. Even if they're posting workouts, if they're not posting the parameters of the workout so you can mimic it or follow it, you need to unfollow them. So if someone doesn't directly offer you value, whether it's creative artistic value or actual scientific value, or it's, close friends, that kind of stuff, but purge your Instagram, man. Like get those, that's toxicity. That's stuff that's you comparing yourself to something. You're never going to starve yourself into being this person. So you don't know their life, you know what they show you. So you need to stop following that kind of shit. So that's my words of wisdom on this sign off.
Yeah, that's actually something I'm going to do today. So, because my little words of wisdom is also social media based, it's about if you follow a lot of health, fitness, even a bunch of dietitians, you'll find that at least once a day, somebody is eating a cookie, eating a piece of cake, eating a donut. Keep in mind that they're not doing that every day, but if you follow enough accounts, you're seeing that every day. You're seeing it more than once a day. So, in fact, as much as I hate to go in and unfollow some dietitians and them lose a little bit of support, that's something that I personally have to do because I'm seeing it all the time and thinking, oh, you know what? This is okay. Everything in moderation and
Right. Including
daily.
moderation.
Yeah, including moderation. So I had a friend came over and spent the night, and so I I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, I need to get half my plate of fibrous vegetables and shit. Look, you're coming to visit. We're going to do what you want. We wanted
Yeah.
Olive Garden, got some tiramisu. So everything in moderation, including moderation. And if your social media is not helping you, it's hurting you.
Right.
So
And I think that kind of both of what we said, this was unplanned, by the way. We didn't
no,
discuss that we were
no,
going to
yeah,
talk social media. But basically, don't sacrifice 90% of your life to lose 5% of your body weight. You know,
there we
it,
go.
it's not worth it. Like life is worth living. You only get one of them. So enjoy it. Don't overindulge. Don't overenjoy it. You have to practice restraint and things of that nature. But it's not worth hating your day to day and not enjoying your food to have abs. Like, who cares?
Yeah,
I don't have abs. I don't give a shit. Like, let's be real with
yeah.
ourselves. So
So, but,
yeah,
and with
awesome.
that,
Yeah.
we're going to sign off.